The streets of Seoul buzzed with life as the evening settled in. Neon signs painted the sidewalks in bright colors, and people rushed past each other, heading home after long work days. Kang Dae-ho walked along the busy street, his hands tucked into his jacket pockets. The cold November air bit at his face, but he didn't mind. After 6 years in the military, a little cold was nothing. He had been working as a security consultant for 3 months now. The job was quiet compared to his army days. Mostly, he checked buildings and trained guards. It paid the bills and kept him busy. That was enough. Dae-ho stopped at a street vendor and bought a warm cup of coffee. As he took his first sip, something caught his eye. A young woman stood near the subway entrance, looking nervous. She kept glancing over her shoulder, her hand gripping her bag tightly. She had long black hair and wore a simple gray coat. Nothing about her seemed unusual, but Dae-ho's instincts told him something was wrong. He had learned to trust those instincts. 3 men followed behind her, keeping their distance but clearly watching her every move. They wore dark clothes and walked with purpose. The woman quickened her pace, turning down a side street. The men followed. Dae-ho threw his coffee in a trash bin and followed too. The side street was quieter, with fewer people around. The woman, whose name was Yoon Ha-rin, though Dae-ho didn't know it yet, walked faster. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had noticed the men following her for the past 15 minutes. She should have stayed in crowded areas, but panic made her take a wrong turn. Now she found herself in a narrow alley between 2 buildings, dead end. She turned around, and the 3 men blocked the only exit. They spread out, moving slowly toward her. One of them smiled, showing too many teeth. "Princess," the man in the middle said, but his voice sounded wrong. The word came out twisted, like his mouth wasn't made for human speech. "You come with us. No trouble." Ha-rin stepped back, her eyes darting left and right. There was nowhere to go. She raised her hand slightly, and for just a moment her fingers glowed with a soft silver light. But then she stopped. The rules were clear. She couldn't reveal herself. Not here. Not like this. "I don't know what you want," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "You have the wrong person." The man laughed. "No mistake. We know who you are. We know what you are." One of the other men reached into his coat and pulled out what looked like a gun, but it was too sleek, too perfect. The metal gleamed with strange patterns that seemed to move in the dim light. That's when Dae-ho appeared at the mouth of the alley. "Hey!" he called out, his voice calm but firm. "Leave her alone!" The 3 men turned to look at him. The one in the middle tilted his head, studying Dae-ho like he was an insect. "Human," he said with disgust. "Walk away. This not your business." Dae-ho took 3 steps forward. "I'm making it my business." The man on the left moved fast, faster than any normal person should move. He crossed the distance in a blur, swinging a fist at Dae-ho's head. But Dae-ho was ready. His military training kicked in instantly. He ducked under the punch and drove his elbow into the attacker's ribs. The man grunted and stumbled back. The second attacker rushed in. Dae-ho blocked a punch, countered with 2 quick strikes to the body, then swept the man's legs. The attacker hit the ground hard, but the third man, the one with the strange gun, raised his weapon, not at Dae-ho, at Ha-rin. Time seemed to slow down. Dae-ho saw the weapon charging, saw the energy building at its tip. He saw Ha-rin's eyes go wide with fear. He didn't think. He just moved. Dae-ho threw himself across the alley, his body colliding with Ha-rin's, pushing her aside. The weapon fired with a sound like thunder compressed into a whisper. A bolt of pure blue energy shot through the air. It hit Dae-ho square in the chest. The pain was unlike anything he had ever felt. It was fire and ice, electricity and crushing weight, all at once. He felt his body lift off the ground and slam into the brick wall behind him. He collapsed to the ground, unable to breathe, unable to move. Through dimming vision, he saw Ha-Rin's face above him. Her eyes were glowing now, bright silver like moonlight. She was saying something, but he couldn't hear the words. They sounded like music, like wind, like nothing from Earth. She pressed her hands to his chest, right where the energy bolt had hit him. Warmth spread from her touch, fighting against the cold death creeping through his body. The warmth felt like sunlight, like hope. The three attackers started to move toward them again, but Ha-Rin turned her head and looked at them. Just looked. Her eyes blazed with silver fire, and her voice rang out in that strange musical language. The air around them shimmered like heat waves on summer pavement. The attackers screamed. Their bodies began to glow, becoming transparent. Within seconds, they dissolved into particles of light that scattered and vanished, leaving only the empty alley behind. Daeho tried to speak, to ask what was happening, but his lips wouldn't move. The warmth from Ha-Rin's hands spread through his entire body now, fighting the deadly energy that wanted to tear him apart from the inside. "Please," Ha-Rin whispered, switching back to Korean, though tears ran down her face. "Please don't die. You saved me. I can save you. Please hold on." Her hands glowed brighter. The warmth became heat, then burning intensity. Daeho wanted to scream, but he still couldn't move. His vision narrowed to a tunnel, with Ha-Rin's desperate face at the end of it. Then everything went black. The last thing he felt was her hands on his chest, still pouring that impossible warmth into him. The last thing he heard was her voice, speaking in that language of music and wind, begging someone or something to let him live. In the darkness, something changed, something connected. Like two wires touching, completing a circuit. Energy flowed between them, binding them together in ways neither of them understood yet. When the police arrived 20 minutes later, called by witnesses who heard strange sounds, they found an empty alley. No bodies, no evidence. Just scorch marks on the wall and a small puddle of coffee on the sidewalk from a cup Daeho had thrown away. Both Daeho and Ha-Rin were gone, taken to a place that existed beneath the city, hidden from normal eyes. A place where Earth's reality ended and something far stranger began. The night grew colder. The city continued its endless rhythm, and Daeho's ordinary life ended forever, changed by one simple act of courage for a stranger he didn't know, a stranger who was so much more than she appeared. Daeho woke up slowly, like swimming up from the bottom of a deep ocean. His mind felt foggy and confused. He tried to remember where he was. His apartment? A hospital? But nothing felt right. He opened his eyes and immediately knew he wasn't anywhere normal. The ceiling above him glowed with soft blue light that seemed to come from within the material itself. Strange symbols floated in the air, moving and changing like living things. The bed beneath him wasn't a bed at all, but some kind of platform that held him suspended on invisible force. When he tried to sit up, the platform tilted smoothly, helping him into a sitting position. "Easy," a familiar voice said. "You need to move slowly." Daeho turned his head and saw Ha-Rin sitting in a chair beside him. She looked the same as before, the same young woman he had saved in the alley. But something about her seemed different now. She sat straighter. Her eyes held a weight that hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had always been there, and he just hadn't noticed. "Where am I?" Daeho asked. His voice came out rough and dry. Ha-Rin handed him a cup of water. The cup looked normal enough, but the water inside glowed faintly. Daeho hesitated. "It's safe," Ha-Rin said. "It will help you feel better." Daeho drank. The water tasted clean and pure, and almost immediately, the fog in his mind cleared. His body felt stronger, the aches fading away. "You're beneath Seoul," Ha-Rin explained. "About 2 kilometers underground, in a facility that your government doesn't know exists." Daeho looked around the room more carefully now. Medical equipment lined the walls, but nothing looked like any hospital equipment he had ever seen. Screens showed images of his body in ways that seemed impossible. He could see his heart beating, his blood flowing, even his brain activity displayed in swirling colors. "Those men in the alley," Deho said. "The gun. What you did to them?" He looked at Harin directly. "Who are you really?" Harin stood up and walked to the window. But it wasn't a real window. It showed a view of Seoul at night, the city lights twinkling like stars. With a wave of her hand, the image changed. Now it showed a different city, one that definitely wasn't on Earth. Towers of crystal rose into a purple sky. 3 moons hung overhead, each a different color. Creatures that might have been birds but weren't flew between the towers. The city glowed with the same soft light that filled this room. "My name is Yoon Harin," she said. "That part was true. But I'm not from Seoul. I'm not even from Earth." She turned to face him. "I'm from a planet called Valora, about 47 light years from here. And I'm a princess, 3rd in line to rule the Valoran Empire." Deho stared at her. His logical mind, trained by years of military service, wanted to call her crazy. But he had seen too much. The impossible weapon, her glowing hands, the way those men had simply vanished. "Aliens," he said flatly. "You're telling me aliens are real?" "Yes," Harin said. "And we've been watching Earth for a very long time." Before Deho could respond, the door opened. A figure walked in, and Deho's breath caught in his throat. The being stood nearly 7 feet tall. His skin looked like it was made of crystal, shifting between blue and purple as he moved. His eyes were solid silver with no pupils. He wore armor that seemed to be part technology, part living thing. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Princess," the being said, bowing slightly. "I am relieved to see you safe." "Commander Rivek," Harin said. "This is Kang Deho. He saved my life." Rivek looked at Deho, and Deho felt those silver eyes examining him, measuring him. "A human," Rivek said. "Brave but foolish. He should not be here." "He's here because of me," Harin said firmly. "He took a blast from a Krath plasma weapon. He should be dead." "Should be," another voice said. A woman entered the room, looking more human than Rivek, but with the same silver eyes and skin that seemed to glow faintly. "But you saved him, didn't you, Princess? You used the royal healing art." "I had no choice, Ambassador Talon," Harin said. Talon shook her head. "You had a choice. You could have let him die, but you didn't. And now you've created a life bond with a primitive human. The Council will be furious." "Primitive?" Deho said, standing up from the platform. He felt anger rising in his chest. "I just saved her life." "And we are grateful," Talon said, not unkindly. "But you must understand. Your species is very young. You've barely left your own planet. You fight wars over resources and beliefs. You destroy your own world. In the eyes of most galactic civilizations, humans are children." Deho clenched his fists, but said nothing. What could he say? Part of what she said was true. Harin stepped between them. "Please, both of you, Deho deserves answers. And Talon, you need to explain what's happening." Talon sighed and created a holographic display in the air with a gesture. It showed a map of the galaxy, with different regions colored in various shades. "The galaxy is home to hundreds of intelligent species," Talon explained. "Most belong to one of 3 major powers: the Valoran Empire, which values knowledge and harmony, the Krath Dominion, which values strength and conquest, and the Tal Confederacy, which values freedom and trade." She pointed to a small dot on the edge of the map. "Earth sits here, in neutral space. By galactic law, developing planets like yours must be left alone until you achieve faster-than-light travel on your own. It's called the Treaty of Non-Interference." Then what was Ha-Rin doing here? Daeho asked. Studying, Ha-Rin said. I've been on Earth for 2 years, observing your culture, your science, your potential. It's something young members of the royal family do. We learn about other species. The Krath discovered her presence, Rivek growled. They sent assassins to capture her. If they succeeded, they could claim the Valoran Empire violated the treaty. It would give them an excuse to invade Earth, to test our response. Daeho felt his head spinning. Galactic empires, treaties, faster-than-light travel, it was too much. You said something about a life bond, he said, looking at Ha-Rin. What does that mean? Ha-Rin's face showed pain. When I healed you, I used a very powerful and forbidden technique. It bound our life forces together. If one of us dies, the other will die within days. Our hearts beat in rhythm now. We can feel each other's emotions when we're close. We're connected in ways that can never be undone. The room fell silent. Daeho processed this information. His life was now tied to this alien princess. If she died, he died. If he died, she died. The council demands that you return home immediately, Talon said to Ha-Rin. They want this human's memory erased. They want to pretend none of this ever happened. No, Ha-Rin said firmly. Daeho risked his life for mine without knowing who I was. He deserves better than having his mind violated. And because of the life bond, his survival is now essential to mine. The council will have to accept that. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed. Rivek's hand went to a weapon at his side that appeared out of thin air. More Krath, he said. They've found us. How many? Ha-Rin asked. Rivek checked a display on his wrist. 6 signatures. Well armed. They're breaching the upper levels now. Ha-Rin looked at Daeho. I'm sorry. You've been thrown into a war you didn't ask for, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Daeho thought about his options. He could panic. He could refuse to believe any of this, or he could do what he had always done, adapt and survive. What do you need me to do? He asked. Ha-Rin smiled. Right now, stay behind Rivek and try not to die. Later? We'll figure it out together. As they rushed out of the medical room, Daeho realized his life would never be ordinary again. He had stepped through a door into a much bigger, stranger, and more dangerous universe, and somehow he was ready for it. The next 3 days passed in a blur of impossible things becoming normal. Daeho learned to use Valoran technology, the food dispenser that created meals from pure energy, the shower that cleaned without water, the communication device that translated any language instantly. Each new wonder made Earth's technology seem like children's toys. But the strangest thing was the bond itself. He could feel Ha-Rin even when she wasn't in the room. If she was happy, warmth spread through his chest. If she was worried, his stomach tightened. At night, he dreamed of places he had never seen, crystal towers, purple skies, cities floating on clouds. Ha-Rin's memories leaked into his mind, and his leaked into hers. On the 3rd morning, Ha-Rin found him sitting in the observation room, staring at the holographic display of Soul above them. You're homesick, she said. It wasn't a question. She could feel it through the bond. Is it that obvious? Daeho asked. Ha-Rin sat beside him. I feel it too. I've been away from Valora for 2 years, and sometimes the ache is so strong I can barely breathe. She paused. Now you feel that too, don't you? My homesickness mixed with yours. Daeho nodded. It's strange, knowing what you feel, having your thoughts brush against mine. The bond will settle, Ha-Rin said. Right now it's new and intense. In time, we'll learn to control it better. We'll still be connected, but it won't be so overwhelming. How much time? Months, maybe years. Ha-Rin looked at her hands. I'm sorry. You didn't ask for this. You were just being brave, and I cursed you with this burden. Don't, Daeho said firmly. I'd do it again. You were in danger. I helped. That's not something to apologize for. Before Harin could respond, the door opened. A young woman rushed in, and Daeho's heart jumped. Jiwoo? His younger sister stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with shock. Park Jiwoo was 24, an engineering student at KAIST. She was supposed to be safely in her apartment, unaware of any of this. Appa? She said, using the Korean term for older brother. What is happening? 3 days ago, men in suits came to my apartment asking about you. They said you were missing. I've been so worried. And then these people showed up and brought me here, and... She stopped, finally noticing Harin and the alien technology surrounding them. Where are we? Daeho stood up. Jiwoo, I need you to stay calm. Can you do that? I'm an engineer, Jiwoo said, her scientific mind already working. I'm always calm. Now explain what's going on. Is this some kind of government facility? Why does that wall show Seoul from below? And why do those symbols keep floating through the air like they're alive? Talon entered the room behind Jiwoo. She's very perceptive. When we scanned her apartment for listening devices, she noticed our equipment and started asking questions. We had to bring her in before she attracted attention. You brought my sister into this? Daeho said, anger rising. We had no choice, Talon replied. The Krath are hunting for anyone connected to you. She was being watched. Here, she's safe. Jiwoo walked slowly around the room, her eyes taking in everything. She stopped at a console and examined the holographic display. This interface uses principles that shouldn't be possible with current technology. The projection is solid state, but there's no visible projector. The power source must be incredibly efficient. She turned to Harin. You're not Korean, are you? Harin smiled. No, I'm from Valora, a planet about 47 light-years from here. Jiwoo blinked. Then she laughed. Not a scared laugh, but one of pure wonder. I knew it. I knew we couldn't be alone in the universe. She grabbed Harin's hands. Tell me everything. How does your ship work? How did you get here? What's your planet like? Do you have... Jiwoo, Daeho interrupted. Maybe let her breathe. But Harin was smiling. It's okay. I like her curiosity. She led Jiwoo to a chair and began explaining, using holographic displays to show Valora, the Empire, the technology. Daeho watched his sister's face light up with excitement and fascination. While he had struggled to accept this new reality, Jiwoo embraced it immediately. Her scientific mind saw not danger, but opportunity. That evening, something changed in the facility's atmosphere. The Valoran staff moved with more purpose, more urgency. Rivek came to find Daeho in the training room, where he had been practicing with Valoran weapons. The High Chancellor has arrived, Rivek said. Vorak, one of the most powerful members of the Valoran Council. He's come to Earth specifically to deal with the princess and the human she bonded with. Deal with? Daeho asked. He views humans as barely sentient, Rivek said, like animals that can use tools. He'll want to take the princess home and leave you here with your memory erased. And if I refuse? Rivek's crystal face showed something that might have been respect. Then you'll have to prove him wrong. High Chancellor Vorak arrived like a storm. He was tall even for a Valoran, with skin that shifted through shades of deep purple. His robes seemed to be made of liquid starlight. When he spoke, everyone listened. The meeting took place in the central chamber. Vorak sat at the head of a long table, with Talon and Rivek on either side. Harin and Daeho stood before them, with Jiwoo watching from the back of the room. Princess Yun Harin, Vorak began, his voice cold and formal. You have violated protocol, exposed yourself to primitives, and created a forbidden bond with a lesser species. The Council demands you return to Valora immediately." "I will return," Harin said. "But Deho comes with me. The life bond makes his survival essential to mine." Vorak's eyes narrowed. "The bond can be broken. It will be painful, but you'll survive." "No," Harin said firmly. "I won't break it." "Then the human's memory will be erased, and he'll be returned to his normal life with false memories implanted. He'll never know any of this happened." Deho stepped forward. "I refuse." Vorak looked at him like he was an insect. "You don't have the authority to refuse anything, human." "Maybe not," Deho said, "but I have something you need. I'm bonded to your princess. If you violate my mind, you hurt her too. The bond works both ways." Vorak stood, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. "You dare to threaten—" "He's not threatening," Harin interrupted. "He's stating facts. The bond is real. If you harm him, you harm me, and I am still a princess of the Empire. You cannot treat me as disposable." Before Vorak could respond, alarms blared again. This time they were louder, more urgent. Rivek checked his display and his face showed shock. "A Krath war vessel just appeared in orbit," he said. "They're demanding we surrender the princess or they'll attack Sol." The room erupted in activity. Talon was shouting orders. Rivek was coordinating with ships in orbit. Jiwoo pulled up a display showing the Krath vessel, her engineering mind already analyzing its design. Vorak turned to Deho. "This is your fault, human. Your interference has brought war to your planet." "No," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see Jiwoo standing, holding a holographic display. "This was planned. Look at the Krath ship's trajectory. They were already in the solar system, hiding behind Jupiter. They were waiting for an excuse to attack." "The girl is correct," Talon said, reviewing the data. "This is a deliberate provocation. The Krath want to start a war, and they're using the princess as the excuse." Vorak looked at Jiwoo with something that might have been surprise. "You understand Valoran tactical displays?" "They're not that different from human systems," Jiwoo said, "just more advanced. The principles are the same." For the first time, Vorak seemed uncertain. He looked at Deho, then at Jiwoo, then at Harin. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "I have underestimated your species." Deho felt a surge of hope through the bond. Harin was smiling. "The question now," Rivek said, "is what we do about the Krath ship. We can't fight it without revealing our presence to all of Earth. And if we surrender the princess, the Krath will kill her and blame us, starting the war anyway." Deho looked at the display showing Sol above them. 8 million people going about their lives, unaware that an alien warship hung above their heads. "Then we need a third option," he said. "One the Krath won't expect." Everyone looked at him. "I'm listening," Vorak said. And for the first time since waking in this strange new world, Deho smiled. The Valoran mothership was impossible to describe in human words. Deho stood at the observation window, looking out at a corridor that stretched for kilometers. The ship was the size of a city, holding thousands of Valorans and other alien species. Gardens grew under artificial suns. Water flowed in rivers that defied gravity, flowing up walls and across ceilings. Buildings made of crystal and light rose from platforms that floated in vast, open spaces. "It's beautiful," Jiwoo whispered beside him. She had insisted on coming, and Harin had agreed. "I never imagined anything like this." "Few humans have seen the inside of a Valoran mothership," Talon said, walking up behind them. "You should feel honored." "I feel terrified," Deho admitted. "In a few hours, I have to stand before the Valoran Grand Council and convince them I'm worthy of being bonded to Harin. What if I fail?" "Then they'll break the bond," Talon said simply. "And you'll both die slowly and painfully over the next few weeks. So I suggest you don't fail." Deho shot her a look. You're very reassuring. Talon almost smiled. I'm being honest. The Council doesn't care about your feelings, Daeho. They care about the Empire. You need to prove that keeping you alive benefits them. Harin appeared in the doorway, wearing formal Veloran robes that shimmered like starlight. She looked more alien now, more like a princess, and less like the student he had met in Seoul. It's time, she said. The Grand Council chamber was enormous. The ceiling rose 100 meters overhead, showing a perfect projection of space beyond. Hundreds of Valorans sat in curved rows, all watching as Daeho and Harin entered. At the center sat Empress Yoon Seojin, Harin's mother. The Empress looked like an older version of Harin, but where Harin's eyes showed warmth, the Empress's showed only cold judgment. Beside her sat a younger man, handsome and proud, Prince Yoon Tae-yang, Harin's older brother. Princess Harin, the Empress said, her voice echoing through the chamber. You stand accused of violating the Treaty of Non-Interference, exposing yourself to a primitive species, and creating a forbidden life bond. How do you answer? Guilty on all counts, Harin said clearly. But I regret nothing. This human saved my life without knowing who I was. He deserves our respect, not our contempt. Murmurs rippled through the council. Prince Tae-yang leaned forward. He's a primitive. His whole species fights wars over imaginary lines on maps. They poison their own planet. They can't even leave their solar system. And you've bound yourself to one of them? Yes, Harin said. Because he showed more courage and honor in one moment than many in this chamber have shown in lifetimes. The chamber erupted in angry voices. The Empress raised her hand, and silence fell instantly. The human will be tested, she declared. 3 trials, as is tradition. Combat to prove strength, wisdom to prove intelligence, and heart to prove character. If he passes, we will consider allowing the bond to remain. If he fails, the bond will be broken, regardless of the consequences. Daeho felt Harin's fear through the bond. He squeezed her hand. I can do this, he said quietly. The first trial began immediately. They led Daeho to an arena where thousands of Valorans gathered to watch. Across from him stood a Valoran warrior, twice his size, covered in armor that seemed alive. This is Krell, Ryvek explained. One of our best fighters. You must last 5 minutes against him without surrendering. You don't need to win. Just survive. The fight began with a gong's sound. Krell moved fast, impossibly fast. His first punch would have taken Daeho's head off if it had connected. Daeho rolled aside, using every trick he had learned in the military. But Krell was stronger, faster, and better trained. Within 2 minutes, Daeho had a broken rib and a bleeding lip. He couldn't match Krell in strength or speed. So he stopped trying. Instead, Daeho used the environment. He grabbed sand from the arena floor and threw it in Krell's eyes. He used the arena pillars for cover. When Krell charged, Daeho dodged at the last second, letting Krell crash into walls. He fought dirty, fought smart, fought like a human who knew he was outmatched. The 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. When the gong sounded again, Daeho collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. But he hadn't surrendered. Krell walked over and offered his hand. Daeho took it, and the Valoran pulled him to his feet. You fight with cunning, Krell said. Not honor, but cunning. It's effective. The crowd murmured. Some seemed impressed. Others looked disgusted. The second trial came the next day. They brought Daeho to a room filled with holographic displays showing a complex situation. 2 fleets faced each other in space. Planets hung in the balance. Alliances shifted like sand. This is the Battle of Korvax, Talon explained. A real battle from our history. The Valoran fleet was outnumbered 3-1. You must devise a strategy that saves the most lives. You have 1 hour. Daeho studied the displays. He didn't know Velaran tactics or advanced weapons, but he knew strategy. He knew game theory. He knew how to think 3 moves ahead. Most importantly, he knew that sometimes the best way to win was to change the game entirely. When the hour ended, he presented his solution. "Don't fight," he said. The council members looked shocked. "Explain," the Empress demanded. "The enemy expects a battle," Daeho said. "They're positioned for it, but look at their supply lines. They're stretched thin, far from their home base. Instead of attacking, you withdraw to this moon and fortify. Make them come to you. Their supplies run out in 3 weeks. They'll have to retreat or starve. You win without firing a shot." Silence filled the chamber. Then Prince Taeyang laughed. "A coward's strategy. We are warriors, not merchants calculating profit." "You're also alive," Daeho countered. "The objective was to save the most lives. My strategy does that." Talon checked historical records. "Interesting. This is actually what happened. The Valoran commander chose to withdraw. The enemy retreated 3 weeks later. We've always been somewhat embarrassed by this victory because it wasn't glorious." "But it was smart," Jiwoo called out from the observation area. Several council members looked up in surprise at the interruption, but the Empress merely raised an eyebrow. "The human passes the second trial," the Empress declared. The third trial was the hardest. They led Daeho to a chamber filled with strange machines. Harin stood beside him, looking worried. "This is a mental trial," Rivek explained. "You'll enter a shared simulation. You'll face attacks designed to break your mind, your will, and your spirit. The only way to pass is to protect the princess within the simulation while enduring these attacks. The trial ends when you surrender, when your mind breaks, or when 30 minutes pass." "What kind of attacks?" Daeho asked. "Fear, pain, despair. Your worst memories brought to life. The Valoran mind healers are very skilled at finding what hurts most." Harin grabbed Daeho's hand. "You don't have to do this. We can refuse the trial and die slowly when they break the bond anyway." Daeho shook his head. "No, I'm doing this." They entered the simulation together. At first, it looked like a beautiful garden. Then the attacks began. Daeho saw his worst memories, his father's death, friends who died in the military, every mistake, every failure, every moment of weakness, all playing out in vivid detail. Voices whispered that he wasn't good enough, that he would fail, that Harin would die because of him. Pain lanced through his body, worse than the energy weapon in the alley. His mind screamed at him to surrender, to make it stop. But through it all, he kept moving. He kept putting himself between Harin and the attacks. When fear tried to freeze him, he pushed through. When pain tried to break him, he gritted his teeth and endured. Because that's what he did. That's what humans did. They endured. 20 minutes passed. 25. Daeho's mind felt like it was tearing apart. But he could feel Harin through the bond, her presence giving him strength. And he knew she could feel him too, his stubborn refusal to give up. At 29 minutes, the Empress herself spoke into the simulation. "That's enough. He's proven his point." The simulation ended. Daeho collapsed, and Harin caught him. They were both crying, both shaking. Back in the council chamber, the Empress stood. The human has passed all 3 trials. He has shown strength through cunning, wisdom through unconventional thinking, and heart through sheer willpower. Perhaps we have underestimated his species. But before anyone could celebrate, a messenger burst into the chamber. "Empress! The Krath fleet has entered Earth's solar system. 50 warships. They demand we surrender Princess Harin or they'll invade Earth." The chamber erupted in chaos. Daeho struggled to his feet, his mind still reeling from the trial. "They're using Earth as bait," he said. "They know you can't fight them without exposing Earth to the truth about aliens. They're counting on you to surrender Harin to save millions of human lives." "What choice do we have?" Prince Taeyang demanded. We cannot fight a war in Earth orbit. The humans aren't ready for that knowledge. Daiho looked at the Empress. Then tell them. Tell Earth the truth. The world changed in a single broadcast. Every television, every computer, every phone on Earth showed the same image. Empress Seo Jin of the Valoran Empire standing aboard her mothership with Earth visible through the window behind her. People of Earth, she began, speaking in every language simultaneously through Valoran translation technology. I am Empress Seo Jin. My people have watched your world for many centuries. Today, I must tell you a truth we've kept hidden. You are not alone in the universe. Daiho watched the broadcast from the command center of the mothership. Beside him, Harin gripped his hand tightly. They could only imagine the chaos spreading across Earth. The Empress continued. A hostile alien force called the Krath Dominion has entered your solar system with 50 warships. They demand I surrender my daughter to them, or they will attack your cities. I cannot surrender her. She will die. But I also cannot fight a war in your orbit without your permission. So I ask you, people of Earth, will you stand with us? The broadcast ended. For 10 seconds, Earth was silent. Then the responses began. Panic in some places. Religious groups claiming the end times, governments scrambling to respond, but also wonder, hope, and anger at the Krath for threatening their world. General Park Min-seok of the South Korean military was the first world leader to respond. He appeared on screens worldwide from a military command center. This is General Park of the Republic of Korea Armed Forces, he said. I speak with authorization from my government and in coordination with leaders worldwide. We have confirmed the alien presence in our orbit. We have confirmed the threat. And we say this to the Krath Dominion. Earth stands with the Valoran Empire. You want to attack our planet? Then you'll have to go through us first. Within an hour, 20 other nations joined the declaration. The United Nations held an emergency session. The impossible had become real, and humanity responded not with surrender, but with defiance. Daiho felt pride swell in his chest. This was humanity at its best, standing up to bullies, protecting the innocent, refusing to back down even when outmatched. In the command center, Rivek coordinated with Earth's military forces. Your weapons are primitive, he told General Park over a communication channel. Your ships can't leave atmosphere for more than a few hours. You have no shields, no energy weapons, nothing that can hurt a Krath warship. Then help us, General Park replied. You have technology. We have courage and creativity. Together, maybe we have a chance. Jiwoo stepped forward, holding a holographic display. I've been studying Valoran shield technology. I think I can adapt it to Earth's power grid. If we can create a planetary defense network, we can protect our major cities. Impossible, Talon said. The systems are too complex. It would take months for a Valoran, Jiwoo interrupted. But I'm human. We're good at taking things apart and putting them back together in ways they weren't designed for. Give me 72 hours and teams of Earth's best engineers. The Empress looked at Jiwoo for a long moment. Then she nodded. You have 48 hours. After that, the Krath will attack. Jiwoo grinned. Then I'll do it in 48 hours. The next 2 days were chaos. Jiwoo worked with engineering teams from 12 countries, connected through Valoran communication technology. Dr. Choi Yoonji, a physicist from KAIST, became Jiwoo's second-in-command. Together, they performed miracles. They stripped Valoran shield generators from smaller ships. They reverse-engineered the power systems. They connected them to Earth's electrical grids. It shouldn't have worked. The systems were incompatible. But humans excelled at making incompatible things work. Meanwhile, Daiho trained with Earth's military forces. Rivek provided Valoran weapons and basic combat training. Soldiers from special forces units around the world learned to use energy shields and plasma weapons in 48 hours. Your species learns fast, Rivek admitted. Valorans train for years to use these weapons. Your soldiers learn in days. Humans are good at adapting, Deho said. We've been fighting wars our whole history. We know how to learn fast or die. Harin worked with world leaders, explaining galactic politics, the Krath tactics, and what Earth could expect. Many leaders were angry that the Valorans had hidden their presence for so long. We thought we were protecting you, Harin explained to the UN Assembly. We thought you weren't ready. I see now that we were wrong. Humanity has been ready for a long time. We just didn't want to see it. On the morning of the third day, the Krath delivered their ultimatum. A massive holographic face appeared above every major city on Earth. The creature was reptilian, with scales like black metal and eyes like burning coals. I am Warlord Krathix, the image announced. Commander of the Krath Dominion Fleet. You have 6 hours to surrender the Valoran princess. If you refuse, we will demonstrate our power by destroying one of your cities. After that, we will destroy one city every hour until you comply. The transmission ended. Deho stood in Seoul, looking up at the sky where Krath warships hung like dark stars. Around him, people went about their business with grim determination. There was fear, yes, but also resolve. They're going to hit us first, General Park said, joining Deho on the street. Seoul is Harin's last known location. They'll want to make a statement. Then we'll make a statement back, Deho replied. In the command center, Ji-Woo activated the planetary defense grid. Shield generators in 12 cities hummed to life. Domes of shimmering energy appeared over Seoul, Tokyo, New York, London, and 8 other major cities. Shields are holding, Dr. Choi reported. They're not as strong as pure Valoran shields, but they'll absorb some damage. Some isn't enough, Prince Taeyang said. He had been vocal in his opposition to helping Earth, but even he couldn't stand by and watch millions die. Those Krath warships can crack a planet if given enough time. They won't have time, Deho said. He pulled up a holographic display showing his plan. We don't have to destroy their fleet. We just have to make them leave, and I know how to do that. He explained his strategy. It was risky. It was crazy. It required perfect timing and a lot of luck. This is suicide, Ryvek said. It's human, Harin countered, and it might actually work. The Empress studied the plan. Then she smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Very well. We'll do it your way, human. But you'll need a team. I have a team, Deho said. Elite soldiers from 6 countries. We've been training together. You'll also need me, Harin said. Absolutely not, Deho said immediately. You're what they want. Bringing you is necessary, Harin interrupted. Your plan requires someone who can operate Krath systems from the inside. I'm the only one here who's studied their technology. Deho wanted to argue, but he could feel through the bond that she was right. And more than that, he could feel her determination. She wasn't going to sit safely while others fought for her. Fine, he said, but you follow my orders. I've been trained for combat, you haven't. Harin smiled. Yes, sir. 6 hours after the ultimatum, the Krath began their attack. A massive warship moved into position over Seoul and charged its main weapon. The beam that lanced down from orbit could have vaporized a mountain. It hit Ji-Woo's shield and scattered into 1,000 smaller beams that burned harmlessly in the atmosphere. The shield held for about 10 seconds. Then it failed, the generators overloading from the massive energy input. But those 10 seconds were enough. In that time, Deho's strike team launched from the Valoran mothership in a stealth shuttle. The shuttle, designed to be invisible to sensors, slipped through the Krath fleet. Deho sat in the pilot seat, his hands sweaty on controls he'd learned to use 3 days ago. Behind him sat 12 soldiers and Harin. We're approaching the command ship, Deho said. Everyone ready? The soldiers checked their weapons. Valoran plasma rifles, human explosives, and energy shields that flickered around their bodies. They were the best Earth had to offer. combined with the best Valoran technology. "Remember the plan," Deho said. "We get in, we broadcast the truth, and we get out, fast and clean." "When has any combat operation ever been fast and clean?" one of the soldiers muttered. "There's a first time for everything," Deho replied. The shuttle attached to the Krath command ship like a parasite. Cutting tools burned through the hull, and then they were inside, moving through corridors filled with enemies, racing against time to expose the truth that would change everything. The battle for Earth had begun. The interior of the Krath command ship was dark and hot, like being inside a machine designed by nightmares. Red emergency lights pulsed along corridors made of black metal. The air tasted like sulfur and burnt metal. Deho led his team through the ship, following the route Ha-Rin had mapped out. Behind him moved soldiers from South Korea, the United States, Russia, and 3 other nations. 2 days ago, these people had been strangers. Now they were a unit. "Contact front," whispered Lieutenant Sarah Chen from the U.S. Navy SEALs. She was on point, her Valoran plasma rifle raised. 3 Krath soldiers rounded the corner ahead. They were massive, 7 feet tall, covered in scales like black armor. When they saw the human team, they roared and charged. The humans fired first. Plasma bolts cut through the air, hitting the Krath center mass. The aliens stumbled but kept coming. Their scales absorbed most of the damage. "Aim for the joints," Ha-Rin called out. "Between the scales!" The soldiers adjusted their aim. This time, the plasma bolts found gaps in the natural armor. The Krath went down, their roars turning to screams. "Move!" Deho ordered. They ran deeper into the ship. Alarms blared now. The Krath knew they had intruders. Outside the ship, the space battle raged. Earth's fighter jets, upgraded with Valoran engines that let them operate in space, swarmed around Krath warships like angry bees. They couldn't do much damage, but they were fast and unpredictable. A Russian pilot named Dmitri pulled his fighter into a spiral that would have killed any normal human. The G-forces should have crushed him, but the Valoran inertial dampeners kept him alive. He fired missiles modified with Valoran targeting systems. They slammed into a Krath destroyer's engine, causing an explosion that lit up space like a new sun. "Kill confirmed," Dmitri shouted over the radio. "First Krath ship down." General Park watched the battle from the command center on the Valoran mothership. Beside him, Jiwoo monitored the planetary shields. They had brought them back online, but they were failing again under the Krath bombardment. "Shields at 40% over Tokyo," Dr. Choi reported. 30% over London. We're not going to hold much longer." "We don't need to hold much longer," General Park said, though he wasn't sure if he believed it. "We just need to give Deho enough time." Inside the Krath command ship, Deho's team fought their way through corridor after corridor. They had lost 2 soldiers already. The Krath were everywhere, pouring out of side passages like a flood of scaled nightmares. Deho threw a grenade around a corner. The explosion cleared the way temporarily. "How much farther?" he asked Ha-Rin. 2 more levels," she said, breathing hard. She wasn't trained for this kind of combat, but she kept up through sheer determination. The main communications array is in the central tower. They reached an elevator shaft. The elevator itself was gone, probably locked down when the alarm started. Deho looked up. The shaft rose for hundreds of meters. "We climb," he said. One of the Russian soldiers, a huge man named Victor, pulled out a Valoran grappling device. He fired it up the shaft, and the magnetic anchor locked onto metal far above. "I go first. Cover me." As Victor climbed, the rest of the team held the entrance to the shaft. Krath soldiers poured in from 3 different directions. The fighting was close and brutal. Plasma fire lit up the darkness. Human shouts mixed with Krath roars. Ha-Rin fought beside Deho, her own plasma rifle spitting blue fire. Through the bond, Deho could feel her fear, but also her determination. She wasn't going to let him down. Finally, they were all in the shaft, climbing toward the communications array. The Krath tried to follow, but the humans had rigged explosives at the bottom. When the Krath got too close, Lieutenant Chen triggered the charges. The explosion sealed the shaft below them. "We're committed now," she said. "No way back." "Was never planning on going back," Daeho replied. They reached the communications level and cut their way through the metal door. Inside was a massive chamber filled with technology that hurt to look at. Screens showed battles across the galaxy. Communication streams flowed like rivers of light. And in the center of it all stood Warlord Krathix. The Krath commander was enormous, bigger than any of his soldiers. His scales were deep red instead of black, marked with scars from 1,000 battles. When he smiled, his teeth looked like knives. "Humans," he said, his voice like grinding stones. "You actually made it this far. Impressive. Stupid, but impressive." "We're here to broadcast the truth," Daeho said, keeping his rifle trained on Krathix. "You're not really here to punish the Valorans for breaking the treaty. This is a false flag attack." Krathix laughed. "Of course it is. Did you think we actually cared about treaties? This is about power, human. About forcing the Valoran Empire into a war they can't afford. About destabilizing the galaxy so the Krath can rise to dominance." "You just confessed," Harin said. She was working at one of the consoles, her fingers flying over controls. "And I've routed this entire conversation to every Krath and Valoran communication channel in the sector." Krathix's smile disappeared. "What?" "You're broadcasting," Harin said. "Every word you say is being heard by millions, including the Krath High Council, who definitely didn't authorize a false flag attack that could destabilize the entire galactic political structure." For the first time, Krathix looked uncertain, then angry, then murderous. "Kill them," he ordered. Krath soldiers poured into the room from hidden doors. The battle became chaos. Daeho's team formed a defensive circle around Hayrin as she worked at the console. Plasma fire filled the air. One of the British soldiers went down. Then Victor took a hit that shattered his shield. Daeho fought like a man possessed, his rifle cutting down Krath after Krath. But there were too many. They were going to be overwhelmed. That's when Krathix himself joined the fight. The warlord moved faster than something his size should be able to move. He swatted aside plasma bolts like they were annoying insects. His clawed hand reached for Harin, ready to tear her apart. Daeho threw himself between them. For the second time, he took a blow meant for Harin. Krathix's claws slammed into Daeho's chest, tearing through his shield like paper. The force threw him across the room. He hit the wall hard enough to crack the metal. Through the bond, Harin felt his pain, felt him dying. She screamed, and something broke loose inside her. All the power she had been holding back, all the royal magic she had been trained to control, erupted outward. Silver light exploded from her body. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't an attack. It was pure truth, pure emotion, pure will made manifest. The light spread through the communications array, amplifying and broadcasting across every channel, every frequency, every form of communication the Krath and Velerans used. Everyone in the sector saw it. They saw Harin's memories of Earth. They saw humans fighting to protect someone who wasn't even their species. They saw Daeho throwing himself in front of her, not once but twice, asking nothing in return. They saw the truth of the Krath plan, exposed not through words but through undeniable emotion and memory. And they saw what the Krath really thought of the treaty, the councils, the peace that held the galaxy together. Krathix's true intentions, his contempt for the rules, his willingness to start a war that would kill billions, all laid bare for everyone to see. The silver light faded. Harin collapsed, exhausted. Around her, the battle had stopped. The Krath soldiers stood frozen, their weapons lowered. They had seen the broadcast, too. They knew their warlord had betrayed them. Krathix stood in the center of the room, his face twisted with rage and shame. "You've ruined everything," he snarled. No, Deho said, struggling to his feet. Blood ran down his chest from where Krathix's claws had torn through armor and flesh. You ruined it yourself. We just made sure everyone knew. Outside the ship, the Krath fleet was falling apart. Some ships began to retreat. Others turned their weapons on Krathix's command ship, not wanting to be associated with his treachery. The Krath High Council was broadcasting emergency orders, trying to contain the disaster. On Earth, Ji-Woo watched the shields fluctuate and then stabilize as the Krath bombardment stopped. "They're leaving," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "The Krath fleet is retreating." General Park allowed himself to smile. The crazy plan actually worked. Back on the command ship, Deho's team moved toward the exit. The remaining Krath soldiers let them pass. Some even saluted, a gesture of respect for warriors who had fought well. Krathix made one last attempt to stop them. He charged at Ha-Rin, roaring his fury. But Deho, despite his wounds, stepped in front of her again. This time, Lieutenant Chen and Victor were there too. 3 plasma bolts hit Krathix simultaneously, finally bringing the warlord down. As they limped back to their shuttle, Deho felt the life bond pulling at him. He had lost too much blood. His wounds were too severe. He was dying, and through the bond, Ha-Rin was dying with him. "Stay with me," Ha-Rin whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Please, stay with me." "Trying," Deho managed to say. His vision was fading to black again, just like in that alley in Seoul. But this time they had a Valoran mothership full of advanced medical technology. This time, they had humans and aliens working together to save him. This time, he might actually survive. Deho stood at the window of the newly completed Earth-Valoran Friendship Station, watching construction crews work on the outer rings. Human engineers worked alongside Valoran technicians, building something that would have been impossible just a year ago. The station orbited Earth at the halfway point between the planet and the moon, a symbol of cooperation between two species. "You're thinking too hard," Ha-Rin said, coming up beside him. "I can feel it through the bond." Deho smiled. The bond had settled over the past months, just as Ha-Rin had promised. They could still feel each other's emotions, still shared thoughts when they were close. But it was no longer overwhelming. It had become comfortable, natural, like breathing. "I'm thinking about how much has changed," he said. "Everything has changed," Ha-Rin agreed. She was right. Earth was barely recognizable from the planet it had been 6 months ago. The revelation of alien life had shaken every foundation of human society. Religions struggled to adapt. Governments reorganized. Science rewrote textbooks overnight. But humans, as always, adapted. The Galactic Coalition had granted Earth provisional membership, the first time a developing world had been given such an honor. Usually, species had to achieve faster-than-light travel on their own before they were considered ready. But Earth had proved itself in other ways. "They're calling it the Soul Accords now," Ji-Woo said, joining them at the window. She wore the uniform of the Valoran Academy of Sciences, where she had been studying for the past 4 months. "The treaty that brought Earth into the galactic community. I still can't believe they named it after our city," Deho said. "It's where everything started," Ha-Rin pointed out. "Where a human risked his life for an alien he didn't know. Where the first bond between our species was formed." The aftermath of the battle had been complicated. The Krath High Council had moved quickly to denounce Warlord Krathix, claiming he had acted without authorization. They had executed him publicly and offered reparations to both Earth and the Valoran Empire. No one believed they were completely innocent, but galactic politics required accepting the convenient lie to avoid a larger war. More importantly, the broadcast of Ha-Rin's memories and emotions had changed something fundamental in how the galaxy viewed humanity. They were no longer seen as primitive animals, but as a species with potential, a species worth knowing. "Your Highness," a Velaran aide said, approaching with a bow, "the Empress has arrived." Empress Seo Jin entered the observation deck, and everyone bowed. She had changed, too, over the past months. The cold, distant ruler who had judged Daeho so harshly had softened. Seeing her daughter nearly die, seeing humans fight to protect her, had opened her eyes to her own prejudices. "Walk with me," she said to Daeho. They walked along the curved corridor of the station, looking out at Earth below. The planet looked so peaceful from up here, blue and green and beautiful. It was hard to believe that 6 months ago it had been under attack. "I owe you an apology," the Empress said. "When I first met you, I thought you were beneath my daughter. I thought your species was barely civilized, that you had nothing to offer the galaxy but violence and chaos." "And now?" Daeho asked. "Now I see that every species has violence and chaos, but they also have courage, creativity, and compassion. Your species simply hasn't had time to hide these qualities behind layers of civilization and protocol." She smiled. "In some ways, that makes you more honest than we are." They reached the central plaza where a ceremony was being prepared. Flags from 100 Earth nations hung alongside banners from a dozen alien species. Representatives from across the galaxy had come to celebrate the station's completion. Prince Taeyang was there talking with General Park. The prince had become one of humanity's strongest advocates after witnessing the battle. He had spent the past months visiting Earth cities, learning about human culture, and helping to establish diplomatic relationships. "My son tells me you're writing a book," the Empress said to Daeho. "About the battle," Daeho confirmed. General Park thought it was important to record everything from the human perspective, so that future generations understand what happened. "What will you call it?" Daeho thought about it. "Maybe The Day Earth Stood Up, or something like that. I'm not good with titles." The ceremony began. Secretary General Nam Subin, Earth's first representative to the Galactic Coalition, gave a speech about cooperation and mutual respect. Empress Seo Jin spoke about the bonds that could form between different species. Other dignitaries added their voices. But the moment Daeho remembered most came when they activated the station's main systems. The entire structure lit up, powered by a combination of human and Valoran technology. Shields formed around it, protecting it from space debris. Artificial gravity stabilized. Life support systems hummed to life. The crowd cheered, humans and aliens together, celebrating something they had built as partners. That evening, there was a reception in the main hall. Daeho found himself talking with Dr. Choi, who had become the head of Earth's new Department of Alien Technology Integration. "We're reverse engineering everything the Valorans are willing to share," she explained excitedly. "Within 10 years, we'll have our own faster-than-light ships. Within 20, we'll have colonies on other worlds." "That fast?" Daeho asked. "Your sister has been very helpful," Dr. Choi said, nodding toward Ji Woo, who was explaining something to a group of Valoran scientists. "She has a gift for understanding alien technology. The Valorans say she's the best human student they've ever taught." Daeho felt pride swell in his chest. His little sister studying at an alien academy, helping to bring Earth into the stars. Later, when the reception was winding down, Daeho and Ha-Rin found themselves alone on one of the observation decks. They stood close together, watching Earth rotate slowly below. "Do you regret it?" Ha-Rin asked. "Your life was simple before. Now you're famous across the galaxy. You can't go anywhere without being recognized. You're bonded to an alien princess for life." Daeho thought about it seriously. His life had been turned completely upside down. He could never go back to being a simple security consultant. The life bond meant he and Ha-Rin would always be connected, and there were people on Earth who hated him for being too close to aliens, just as there were aliens who hated Ha-Rin for bonding with a human. "No," he said finally. "I don't regret it. I saved your life. I helped save my planet. I've seen wonders I never imagined existed. How could I regret any of that?" "Even being stuck with me forever?" Harin asked with a small smile. "Especially that," Deho said. They kissed, while Earth turned below them and the stars shone above. A human and an alien, bonded together by chance and choice, standing at the beginning of a new age. In Seoul, children looked up at the night sky and saw the station orbiting overhead. They dreamed of becoming astronauts, of visiting other worlds, of meeting aliens. The fear that had gripped Earth during the battle had transformed into wonder and excitement. In the Valoran Empire, Harin's story had inspired a movement. Young Valorans questioned the old prejudices against lesser species. They asked why the Empire had hidden from humanity instead of helping them grow. Change came slowly to an ancient civilization, but it was coming. And in the Krath Dominion, the High Council worked desperately to maintain control as their people demanded to know why their leaders had risked war for personal gain. The broadcast of Krathix's betrayal had shaken the foundation of their government. Some said the Dominion would collapse within a generation. Others said it would reform into something better. Deho didn't know what the future would bring. None of them did. But for the first time in human history, Earth wasn't facing the future alone. 3 months later, Deho and Harin stood before the Galactic Coalition Assembly. They had been invited to speak about the bonding ceremony that would make their partnership official in the eyes of both their species. "We stand here representing two very different worlds," Harin said to the gathered representatives of 100 civilizations. "A world of ancient wisdom and advanced technology, and a world of young energy and adaptable thinking. But we've learned that different doesn't mean incompatible. 6 months ago, I didn't know aliens existed," Deho continued. "Now I'm bonded to one, working with them, learning from them. My species went from thinking we were alone in the universe to becoming part of a galactic community. It happened fast. Maybe too fast. But we're managing." "Because that's what humans do," Harin said. "They adapt. They learn. They refuse to give up even when the odds are impossible." "And that's what Valorans do too," Deho added. "They think deeply. They plan carefully. They value knowledge and harmony. Together we're stronger than we are apart." The assembly voted unanimously to recognize the bonding. It was a small thing in the grand scheme of galactic politics, but it was also a symbol of what was possible when different species chose understanding over fear. As they left the assembly, Deho reflected on the path that had brought him here. It had started with a simple act of courage in a Seoul alley. He had seen someone in danger and helped without thinking about the consequences. That single moment of selfless action had changed the course of two worlds. "What are you thinking?" Harin asked, feeling his contemplative mood through the bond. "That I'd do it again," Deho said. "Take that bullet for you, not knowing who you were. I'd do it 1,000 times. "I know," Harin said softly. "That's why I love you." They walked together through the corridors of the Galactic Coalition headquarters, a human and an alien bonded for life. Behind them, the doors to Earth's future stood open. Ahead of them, the stars waited. And somewhere in Seoul, in an alley where it all began, a small memorial plaque had been placed. It read, "Here, a human showed courage without expectation of reward. Here, two worlds began to understand each other. Here, the age of Earth's isolation ended." Children passed it every day on their way to school. Most didn't stop to read it, but some did, and they wondered what they might do if faced with the same choice. Would they be brave enough? Would they help a stranger in danger? The memorial didn't give them the answer. It simply reminded them that courage, real courage, wasn't about knowing the outcome. It was about doing what was right, even when you didn't know what would happen next. And that lesson, more than any technology or alliance, was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy.